Welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast, brought to you by TournamentPokerEdge.com, the only podcast dedicated exclusively to poker tournament strategy. Now here's your host, Clayton Fletcher.
Hello once again, everybody, and welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast. I'm your host, Clayton Fletcher, in fabulous Las Vegas, where I have recently arrived for the 15 million annual, what annual are we? I don't even know anymore. World Series of Poker, the first time that we've done it in October. We're going to have a November 9 this year, but you guys know all that already. I am here with a living legend, you could say. He is the face of Poker Go, the voice of Poker Go, a good friend of mine, and a repeat guest here on the podcast. You guys know who I'm talking about, Mr. Jeff Platt. How are you, Jeff?
Clayton, I'm good, man. It's great to be on with you. It's great to see you. We are here. We are back at the World Series of Poker. It's awesome. Couldn't be more fired up.
In the flesh. And as we're recording this on Thursday, October 7th, in the wee hours, we just saw 2 bracelets be awarded. So if you don't want a spoiler about who wins the bracelets, because you're going to watch them all on tape delay on Poker Go later, you can fast forward 30 seconds. But we just saw Jason Kuhn win his first bracelet just moments ago. Mm-hmm. And almost at the exact same moment, Ari Engel won his second bracelet. What was that like?
It was absolute madness for us. So for our broadcast, we were trying to keep track of both the 10K Omaha 8 or Better Championship and the Heads Up Championship, which did feature GG Poker's newest ambassador in Jason Kuhn. And so the matches moved pretty slowly, especially that Omaha. I mean, Omaha 8 or Better, Heads Up, can be tough.
Limit.
Zach Melchman, who's right behind
it's
us,
limit
put up a hell of a fight, a hell of an effort.
Great game,
It was a battle. It was full of ups and downs. It was a roller coaster ride, and everything just hit at once. So, they're screaming in my ear. I was doing the sideline reporting. They're like, okay, we're going to interview just the winner. Just Ari. Just get Ari. No interview. We got to go to the last hand for Kuhn because Kuhn was all in a call. And then, they were counting the chips out. It was remarkable. It was such an incredible rush. And I was talking to Jason about this afterwards. It felt good to have not just a live tournament back, but a live tournament back with a crowd like this, with a rail like this, with an atmosphere and environment like this. And it's just something that we've really come to appreciate at the World Series of Poker after having to take a year off. So it was madness, sure, but I loved every second of it.
Yeah, it is a different atmosphere, obviously, having people around, people cheering, people drinking and cheering for their friends.
Oh, were they
stuff.
drinking? It was hard to tell.
Yeah.
Very hard to tell, yeah.
No doubt. But yeah, to me, it's fun. Of course, we have to wear our masks. Well, not while you're playing, but, right. Kind of everybody standing around is masked up, except when they're, having another sip, as it were. But yeah, the atmosphere is live. It's exciting. It's not quite what we remember from 2 years ago, but a far cry from last year for sure.
No question about it. No question about it. And that's what the buzz has felt like. I know you just got into town recently, but I think you'll see this at the first couple tables that you're at. Is sure there are long lines. Sure the payout process may be slow. But all in all, everybody is just so happy to be back. So it's such a positive atmosphere. It's full of these, incredible vibes, as corny as that may be to say. But it's just great, man. Look around. We're here in the Amazon room. We've got our beautiful stage set up. We've got a ton of different tables. We've got action going on in a ton of different bracelet events. I think we'll say it so many times over these first couple weeks especially, but it is so good to be back.
Yeah, it's great to be back. And, my listeners know, it's kind of similar to comedy, because for 18 months I was doing comedy on Zoom, which is just torture. If online poker is not as much fun as live poker, online comedy is just horrible. So I'm excited to be able to do the things that I love in person. And I know you have always been a big World Series of Poker fan.
Yeah.
From, maybe the listeners might remember back in the day, you were living in Dallas, but you would come out here for the main event and maybe a few other tournaments, stuff like that. And now you are living here in Las Vegas, correct? Mm-hmm. And now you're in a different role this year, right? The sideline reporting. What's it like? How is it different? Talk about that a little bit.
It's incredible. Just to be able to witness all of these World Series of Poker events firsthand and to get to chat with some newly minted bracelet winners and to be a part of these broadcasts with an exceptional team. I know you're going to work a couple broadcasts, so you know the crew that I'm talking about behind all of these Poker Go broadcasts led by Maury Eskandani and Dan Gotti. Like, I just feel so fortunate. I get to show up and talk about poker and fire off some sideline reports and interview some people, and they pay me a little bit for it, which is just, I do it for free. Don't tell them that, but I would do it for free. So it's awesome. I think our broadcasts get better and better year by year, and I think our set looks amazing this year.
The set looks really clean.
Yeah,
it does. It looks really clean. Yeah.
Clean's perfect word for it. It's just so sleek, and I think it'll really come across well on TV. You know this, we have that new deal with CBS Sports Network. So all the events that we're streaming are being shown live on Poker Go, and then in a couple of months, they're edited, they're produced, and they're cut down to 1-hour episodes on CBS Sports Network. And I think it's a partnership that everybody's going to be happy with, that Poker Go is going to be happy with, CBS, the World Series of Poker, everybody watching. There's a little bit for everybody, whether you're a casual poker fan or a hardcore poker fan. So I'm just thrilled to be a part of it. Very fortunate.
Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. I mean, I'm excited. On the day when this comes out, which is just in a few hours, actually, I'm actually doing my first commentary gig in the new year with the new, with the new system and everything for Poker Go. It's going to be the 3K freeze out. So that's one of the things that's different this year. Is normally the main event is the only actual freeze out in the World Series of Poker, and this year there are at all different buy-in levels, various freeze outs, or some tournaments where you can only re-enter once. Kind of listening to the players, like they didn't think it was fair. Like if I just have, bags and bags of money, I could just keep firing and firing and firing. Whereas an amateur player might only have a limited bankroll or whatever. Like even some pros have a limited bankroll. In some way, everybody's bankroll is limited, right? So at some point, it becomes more of an advantage to be rich. And we don't want that in poker. We want the fair game. So I'm excited to comment on the... and so if you have Poker Go, you can listen to me. I'll be in the booth along with David Tuckman.
There we go.
Tomorrow. Fletch and Tuck together again. Sounds like a 1970s like cowboy movie or something. Fletch and Tuck on the Great Prairie. So that'll be fun. Now, with you doing the sideline reporting, one thing that I like is we get to see your personality more. We get to actually see you. Because honestly, when you're in the booth, we hear your voice a lot.
Right.
But we don't get to see you as much. So, how much work goes into making all of this beauty happen?
Well, it's a lot of prep. It's, my makeup bill is sky high. I prepare for these broadcasts kind of like I do for play-by-play, with the added benefit of being able to talk to these guys when they're on breaks, before play starts, getting to know them a little bit more, and figuring out, if I were a viewer, if I were watching, what would I want to know about these guys? And I try to communicate those kinds of questions to our players that are at these final tables, or that are lucky enough to come out on top. Like maybe Kevin Martin from GG Poker comes out on top, and maybe
I will be coming out on top.
There we go, baby. Maybe he wins a bracelet this summer. Maybe we get to, or fall, whatever it is. Maybe he wins
Kevin
too.
Martin.
Maybe he wins too.
Popular GG Poker professional. Kevin Martin, also a Canadian Big Brother winner.
That's right.
Right. And he's very, very active on Twitch. His stream is really big. So we're sitting here like at the Rio, just moments after all the tournaments end. We got all kinds of luminaries wandering around.
That's the great thing about the World Series of Poker, right? I mean, Negreanu was just here. He was sweating his boy Jason Kuhn. We just chatted with Jason Kuhn. Ari Engel's right there, former World Series of Poker of the Year, Player of the Year. Frank Casello directly walked behind our interview live.
Photo
on the air.
bomb.
No big deal. And he kind of oh, yes. I mean, could you not see the cameras and the lights and the microphones, Frank?
Yeah.
That was absurd. But this is what you see at the World Series of Poker. So the sideline reporting, again, it's just I'm trying to hold a casual conversation with these guys. I don't want to go in with super scripted questions. I never want to go in with super scripted reports, because I just want it to feel like we're just chatting. Like we're just talking about what it means to win a bracelet.
Yeah.
The producers are great. They never, force me to do this, force me to do that. They've kind of open the door for me to just do whatever I feel is right in the moment, and I appreciate that trust that they show in me.
Well, I mean, I've been watching the coverage. You're doing a terrific job.
Thank you.
It is very natural. It doesn't feel like a
Good.
scripted interview. And I know from, having done a lot of interviews myself, I hate when the interviewer asks me questions that are so scripted that they don't even react to my answers.
Right.
It's like question number 1 and then fill in the blank. Question number 2. That's not the way to do an interview. But you are a poker player yourself. And so I think that really helps you kind of get inside of what sort of things the viewers want to watch and want to hear.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think, first of all, sure, when let's say you say a joke in your answer and the interviewer there's just
nothing.
they give you nothing, or you say last time I played this event was in 2017, and then their next question is, so when did you last play this event? It's just like they're not listening in any way whatsoever. So I've learned over the years, I've made those mistakes, of course, but to just listen because we're having a conversation, and that's something that I really enjoy. And then when I try to become a better poker player by studying, I naturally will become a better poker broadcaster, right? And so that means that when I do play-by-play, I'm able to set my analyst up in much better spots. I'm able to explain certain things to the casual viewer. And that means when I'm doing sideline reporting, I know a little bit more about how to talk with the player, with the guests that we have. So it all just kind of flows together in this flywheel of sorts.
It's a beautiful thing, and it's a great spot for you. And I hope that you enjoy it as much as we enjoy watching you do it.
Thank you. I do. Man, I love coming to work. I'm passionate about it. I'm so fired up. This was maybe the longest day we've had in quite some time. Got here at 10 a.m. to shoot some stuff.
Wow.
What time
It
is
is now almost 1 a.m.
I mean, as you can tell, I'm just fired up. And you wanted to talk about poker some more. I'm like, okay, let's do it.
Go.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. You agreed to this interview after a 14-hour day.
Right.
I mean, I don't know how many people would do that. So I really do appreciate your time.
But you sat here for a while too, so I know you love it as well. It's not just me.
Yeah. No, I mean, I soak it up. I've been dying to get back here and do this again. I was hoping that would happen last year, obviously, and then I was like, well, maybe it'll happen in the summer of 2021. They still made us wait a few more months, but I figured we waited this long. But yeah, I'm just excited to be here. I'll be here for the duration.
Nice.
All of my listeners can expect plenty more guests. I hope I can get you on again. I know you're going to be very busy, because also you were telling me that when you're not doing the sideline reporting gig, you plan to play a little poker yourself.
I think so. I've got some off time now, especially towards the middle and end of October with my broadcast schedule. So why not fire, right, Clayton? So, the Millionaire Maker, the Monster Stack, the Double Stack, the Flip and Go.
All
the gimmicky stuff with 1 billion people in the field. I'm in, I'm playing, and I'm ready to rock and fire a little bit.
Fantastic. Have you gotten to play any yet, or have you just been busy with the broadcast?
I played that 1K COVID relief event to kick off the series, played 1K Super Turbo Bounty, and the 500 WSOP Online.
Okay, so any cashes yet, or are you going to be working more overtime this week?
Don't mean to brag, Clayton, but we do have one cash on the board in that 1K Super Turbo Bounty, which again is all skill, of course, as
Naturally,
you know.
yes.
So I had not quite a min cash, couple levels up, and about 4 bounties. So nice little return, and we're only down a little bit for the series. So I'll take that. A weekend, I'll take it.
On October 7th, 1 week into the World Series of Poker, Jeff Platt is down just a smidge.
That's the dream right there. That is the dream.
Do you have any hands you want to discuss?
Yes. I was ready for you, because I know on this Tournament Poker Edge podcast, you like to go through some hands. I wrote them down. And I think the first one, Clayton, is not to say, oh, look at me, I got a bluff through, I'm the best player in the world.
Yeah.
It's more to say, this is a really interesting fold from my opponent. This is a really interesting spot. And also, the second hand, I think I punt off into. So if you think I'm good by discarding this first hand, like, oh, I like the way you played this one, just wait till you hear the second hand where I just donate my chips.
I understand the strategy here. You're going to pump yourself up a little bit first, and then you're going to just get right back down to the ego where it needs to be.
It's smart, right? It's a good strategy. Okay, so this first one is from that 1K Super Turbo that I just mentioned. At this point, there's a 1,600 player field. We are probably 200 players off the money.
And it's $300 bounties? Is that
$300 bounties, a $1,000 buy-in. I have about 25 big blinds at this point in the tournament, which is just a little above average. Again, that 1K Super Turbo, man, that moves quick. So
25 blinds above average.
Yeah, average stack is about 20 bigs.
Nice.
For this hand, it folds around at a cutoff who has about 50 bigs, which is all the chips in the 1K Super Turbo bounty. I mean, almost lock up
He's
the bracelet.
just Joe Meehan at that point.
Yeah. And this player was recognizable to me. I'm pretty sure that he was a pro, but I couldn't tell you much more. I'd just been moved to the table,
right.
So I couldn't tell you too much more other than that. So he raises it up. Again, he's got about a 50 big blind stack. Makes the standard just barely above the min raise. I think he goes 2.1x. Folds around to me in the big blind, and I defend with the Jack-8 offsuit.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think this is a definite call here. I mean, I would call with a little bit worse than that.
Yeah.
Not too much worse, but
right.
a little worse, because it's, you're getting a good price, and your hand flops. You can figure it out.
Yeah. I think it, super standard so far. So after I defend, the flop comes King of Diamonds, 5 of Clubs, 4 diamonds. And my first note is I don't have a diamond.
Right. And we also don't have a leading range here, do
right.
we? Yeah.
I don't think so on these king high flops.
So it's king 5-4, heads up, 2 diamonds. You don't have any diamonds.
Correct.
So we whiffed this flop about as badly as you could.
Yeah, we whiffed pretty bad. I mean, to the point where I think I'm check folding just a lot.
Sure.
Just a lot there. We're just kind of waving the white flag. Now, let's say I have Jack-8 with the Jack of Diamonds. We aren't waving the white flag quite yet, right? Maybe if it's even the 8 of Diamonds, we aren't waving the white flag quite yet. But just that one backdoor straight draw with the Jack-8 with the unders to the king, not too promising.
You have to catch perfect to make it straight, right?
Right.
Like a 6 and a 7.
Yeah, so I check, really planning on check folding. He checks back. Okay, so now the door could be open, I think, to leading some turns. And tell me if you agree, but I think this was one of them, as the turn was the 6 of Clubs. So that brings 2 flush draws on board. So it's King, 5, 4, 6, 2 diamonds, and 2 clubs.
Oh, so this is a really good card for you to fire, because you now have a gut shot.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said a moment ago, you have to catch perfect. Well, you got 1 perfect, and now we need a 7 to make that straight. But now we also have a lot of cards that we can rep on the river, because now there are 2 possible flush draws for our opponent, who almost definitely doesn't have the front door flush draw because he didn't continuation bet.
Right.
And almost everybody bets there, because you might as well just take the pot now. You're going to win it such a huge percentage of the time. So we can pretty much rule out him having flopped the flush draw. Now, he may have picked one up here on the turn, but that's also pretty unlikely. But now if you fire and start to rep that card, then he doesn't know if you're betting because you actually have a hand, or you betting because you just picked up the backdoor flush draw and you're trying to semi-bluff. But either way, he's going to be in a really tough spot to try to figure out what's going on.
And don't you also think, and I thought about this before I fired, I do end up firing, that a lot of times in this very specific spot, that you have to be prepared to go bet. Like if he's checking back ace-jack, for example, I could have listed a whole range of hands. If he's checking back ace-jack on king 5-4, and I lead the 6, that brings a second flush draw, he's not going to fold too often, right?
Almost everybody calls there now.
Right.
Years ago, they would fold, because I just have
sure.
ace high, I'm going to fold. Nowadays, everybody's stickier than they ever used to be. So that means if we are going to bluff, we have to be prepared. Kind of depending on what the river card ends up being, there's a lot of rivers we need to bet again. So it's got to be a 2-street strategy, not just one.
I completely agree. And so for the sizing, I went 1/3 pot here on the turn. As far as I just think my leads there, whether I have it or not, are kind of around that 1/3, that smaller leading range. What do you think about that sizing?
I like it. I mean, typically I'll go bigger on the turn, just because I want to either try to take it down now, or just make a bigger pot for me to win when I bluff again on the river.
Sure.
So it's almost like if I have a 2-street strategy for my bluff, I almost want him to call that bet on the turn, because I'm going to fire again on the river and win it a lot. Yeah, and then I know I'm going to win a bigger pot when he folds. I'm building a bigger pot for me to win with my river bluff. But yeah, I mean, obviously 1/3 is fine, and then you can go big if a really scary card comes on the end.
Right, and so he calls turn. And that river, I think, brings a pretty scary card in the form of the 4 of spades. So none of the flush draws hit. So it's king 5-4, 6-4. No, and the flush draw did not come in on the river.
Oh, okay. I thought we had spades. No.
No.
Oh, okay. All right. So there's no spades. No flush. I mean,
No flush.
no flush. And now the 4 has paired.
Right.
So what did Jeff bet on the turn that he's now betting again on the river? Yeah, that is pretty scary.
Yeah.
That is scary, especially if he just has like ace high. Like you said, he might have some random ace high that he called you with on the turn, especially when you bet 1/3 pot. You are going to get more calls with wider range, so weaker hands.
And aren't I betting 1/3 with like my 7-4, 8-4, 3-4, all of that, my random like Jack 4 suited.
Yeah, I mean, you have a lot more
I
4
have
than
all
he does.
the fours. I have all the fours, I think, there in that spot. So I bet pot.
Yeah, I
there.
like it. So the small bet on the turn gets called, and now you really have to pump it.
Yeah, pedal to the metal.
Yeah,
And,
I like it.
And he tanks, and he tanks, and he tanks. And, it was kind of a good feeling, like that sick feeling where, like, your body's really tight. You're thinking fold. But it was also proof like, hey, we're back at the World Series of Poker. This is a pot that means something to me. This is awesome.
Yeah, now for me, Jeff, when I see somebody really in agony and it's the river, so I know he's not acting.
Yeah.
I know I've done my job.
Right.
So whatever happens next,
It might not work.
I put him through the ringer, and that's the job.
Yeah.
Sometimes he's going to guess right, but that's just it. If he's agonizing this much, he's guessing, and that's good. The more guessing they're doing, the more you're winning.
Yeah,
right?
I think so. And here's the value of the line that we took is that he ended up folding and he showed a king. So on the king 5-4, 6-4, where the flush draws do not come in, he showed a king and folded. I'm like, that's not quite what I was targeting there. but thank you very much.
Wow.
And so it made me think like, oh, wow.
Wow.
Like,
wow is right. I mean,
mean,
put it this way, I wouldn't try that in the 10K Super Turbo Bounty.
No. I think that's very fair. I don't think those guys are folding kings. So then I was thinking about like, could it, he has to call with like his king 7s, his king 8s, his king 3s, but like, can he fold king 10? I don't think so, because there's so many turns so many hands that I have where I would fire a turn there. Every flush draw, both flush draws, the one that flopped, the one that turned.
The board is so wet with straight draws, flush draws, combo draws.
Yeah.
That you are going to have a lot of bluffs.
I might think I'm value betting 8s there, for example,
for
because
sure.
a king's going to c-bet flop more often than not.
Yeah.
So I was very surprised. This kind of opened my eyes to, maybe this can just get through a ton.
Yeah. Well, I mean, once you have that information about one of your opponents, now that's why you don't want to fold your top pair face up. Like, just throw it away. You don't have to show me what you folded, right? So when he does that, now we have extra information on him. And if that's kind of what people are doing in that tournament, especially in a Super Turbo, I would be pedal to the metal a lot. That would be a great tournament for me because I like to get after it.
I hope you have some of these on your schedule over the next month. Good, because these are made for you, I think, to either win the bracelet or go busto in an hour or so. Yeah,
exactly. Okay. Maybe collect one bounty and then go busto. Yeah. Well, that's cool. Do you want to do another one?
Yeah. Let's do another one.
Yeah, I think you play that hand well.
Okay.
I do. I think you play that hand well. I like it. I might size up a little bit on the turn, but that's a minor detail. I think your opponent should never be, because he just doesn't have enough bluff catchers if he's folding a king. Then.
Right. I agree with you. And I also think that, I think over these last 2 years or so, we've opened our minds to this more, but leading turn from the big blind that you don't always, even when you check call flop on something like that, on one of those kind of scary-ish turn cards, I think you're free to lead turn, and you can almost, not necessarily in this case, but in others where you went check call on flop, you can use the turn as a blocker bet of sorts, right, to limit the size of the pot. So, like, let's just say I had 7-5 on the king 5-4, and I check called, and the turn was a 6. If I led super small there, it's really hard for him to raise me there, and I think you're keeping the pot from being inflated. Let's say I check and he went huge, then I'm just stuck in hell. Like, I have to call here. What am I going to do on the river? The pot's going to be so bloated. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do, because you picked up a draw. So if you pick up a straight draw or a flush draw on the turn and you want to lead small to not have to pay a bigger price if you check, I mean, that's a good play, especially if your opponent had a high probability of betting that card.
Right.
I mean, if he was going to check, then you just cost yourself.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
But no, if you check, you don't have any fold equity. So, I mean, that's why I always bet almost at every opportunity that I can get. I bet Even when it's not my turn, I just bet and hope everybody folds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to this next tournament, this is from the online event. This is from the online $500, a bunch of re-entries, whatever. I think we're just past the re-entry stage. So we're not close to being in the money for this one. And I mean, this, these World Series of Poker online tournaments, they draw the worst of the worst and sometimes the best of the best.
Yeah.
And so sitting at my table was one of the best of the best. His name is David Coleman. He really burst onto the scene during the Poker Go Cup, where he made some sick runs and some 25Ks and 50Ks. And a lot of the top-level pros, like the Ali Amshuroviches of the world, the Daniel Negreanu's of the world, they speak very highly of this player. So he was at my table, which is not great news. He was on my right, which is good news. So this
relation to Daniel Coleman.
No relation.
Okay,
no relation to Daniel.
Just
Coleman.
a different crusher.
Just a different
Coleman.
elite Coleman in the poker world.
Right.
So for this hand, we're both about 80 bigs deep or so. The blinds, the small blind and big blind both had about 20 bigs. That won't really come into play.
Okay.
So it folds around to David Coleman. He opens in middle position. His standard open was again, a little over 2x or so. I'm behind him in the low jack with pocket nines.
Okay. I'm sorry, how many blinds do we have again?
We have 80-ish. And so does Coleman. We have very similar
So we
stacks.
have good size stacks.
Yeah.
I think 3-betting is okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think calling is okay. Mm-hmm. The fact that he's such a strong player might make me want to 3-bet more.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to play these kind of medium strength pocket pairs, even in position against a true crusher. But at the same time, you can have a lot more with set value if you just call and then you have a little more wiggle room afterwards. And you do have position. So some of his skill advantage over us is going to be diminished by the fact that he'll be out of position against us. So I think on balance, I would just call.
Yeah, and I mentioned, the stacks of the blinds. I think there are some reshove stacks there where I call behind with the nines, folds around to them, and they shove, Coleman folds, I'm in a great spot with the nines. I'm in a great spot. So
you're in a great spot as long as you don't throw those nines away.
Right. And yeah, I think tens I would 3-bet for sure.
Okay.
And I think nines are kind of like the half and half.
Yeah, either one
spot.
is fine.
Yeah,
it's optional.
So
as a solver would say, it's a mix.
It's
a mix.
So when I punt this off, I'm just going to say low frequency play or something like that.
Play,
It's a mix, low frequency,
awesome.
whatever.
I love it.
So the 9 of spades and 9 of clubs, by the way.
Okay.
So I call behind, everybody else folds. Flop is Jack of hearts, 7 of diamonds, 2 of diamonds. Jack, 7 deuce with 2 diamonds and 1 heart. I have 2 black nines, and he checks.
Okay. So, if we bet, we're trying to protect our equity, right? Clean up our equity against hands like king, queen, whatever. Like
all of that, all ace 10.
Yeah, all the hands that don't have a pair, but they have decent equity against us. I don't know that we can get much value.
Sure.
Called by worse unless we bet really, really small. And I don't think that's the game we want to play against the player you described. Mm-hmm. So I'm okay with checking.
Yeah.
I think I would prefer to bet. I would probably bet a little less than half the pot here and hopefully just take it down right there.
I bet 1/3 there.
Okay.
You mentioned the hand protection. I think that's really important. I do think that Coleman will check call a lot of his ace highs. No diamond in my hand, no heart in my hand. All of his flush draws, his backdoor draws, would put some chips in.
Doesn't this feel like I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Okay.
Doesn't this feel like a better flop for us than it is for him?
For sure. When we just call behind, I do think it is better for us.
And so that's why I think he might not be as call heavy with his ace high hands.
Great
because
point.
It's like
maybe the ace king, ace queens of the world,
best,
but not like the ace tens, ace nines, that kind of stuff.
Okay, all right, cool. Yeah, we're on the same page there.
So after I bet 1/3, he check raises, and he goes 3.5x on that check raise.
All right, this is weird. I really don't know how to range this check raise. Obviously, he could have a lot of fun doing this with a set.
Sure.
But a lot of players would just make a normal C bet with a set. Right? If he opened with pocket sevens, middle cards of 7, you flop that 7, you don't really want to go for the check raise. Not too many. I don't see a lot of check raising with the nuttiest hands here. So then typically those bets will be made more with our bluffs. But how many bluffs does he have on Jack 7
Deuce with 2 diamonds?
I mean, I guess he's check raising a lot of flush draws. Even then, I think that's just mostly a C bet. I don't know what he has because we didn't talk about this hand before.
Right.
Whatever he has, he's playing it in a strange way.
Yeah.
And I'm not ready to fold my 9s. Are you?
No, sir. I am
Okay.
not. I think from what I've seen, when we've been doing the commentary for like these Poker Go Cup events that all of these elite high rollers are in, a lot of their check raises consists of backdoor draws. Like, for example, on this Jack of Hearts, 7 of Diamonds, Deuce of Diamonds flop, I see a lot of check raises with like the Ace 3 of Hearts, Ace 4 of Hearts, those backdoor draws with an overcard to the Jack that puts a lot of pressure on your opponent. Because like you said, I mean, we're calling with the 9s, but we don't feel like fantastic.
Not loving
We don't
it.
feel
Yeah.
terrific. And all of our bluffs have to fold there, right? I mean,
Of
when
course.
we get check raised, we're just
Yeah. It was like,
rolling
oh, I was
our
just
eyes and
kidding.
folding.
Yeah.
right. It's just like, oh,
Nice
sucks
hand,
for
JK.
us. Yeah. And so, we make the call. And I think it also helps, I mentioned those backdoor draws. So when I have 2 black 9s, not having the 9 of diamonds for that flush draw that's on flop, and not having the 9 of hearts, because I think a hand like 9, 10 of hearts, he probably check raises. I think a hand like, Queen 9 of hearts is kind of similar there, and that's got that overcard that a lot of these guys check raise with.
Interesting. So it's like you have your gut shot in some cases, you have an overcard in some cases, but having that backdoor potential is really what is causing them to feel like it's a good check raise spot.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be able to fire a lot on the turn.
Yes,
And you're also going to get there sometimes. So even if your opponent correctly reads that your check raise on the flop is mostly a bluff, he might not always figure out that you did, in fact, get there and you're no longer bluffing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So we do make the call with the 9s. The turn is the 4 of clubs. So it's Jack of Hearts, 7 of Diamonds, Deuce of Diamonds, 4 of clubs. And he bets 2/3.
Okay, so it's a sizable bet.
Yeah. The pot has escalated after his check raise was pretty sizable.
Yeah.
Went towards the bigger sizing there, I think.
Yeah, and if he chose to check raise you on the flop because he wanted to just get you to fold out your bluffs, then when you call and he continues, we have to wonder, like, you've told your story, which is I bet the flop and I meant it because I didn't fold to your check raise, buddy.
Yeah.
And now he's still betting, which to me shows a lot of strength, especially when that card didn't bring any of those back doors we were talking about a moment ago. So now I'm starting to dislike my 9s more and realize I may be getting outplayed by David Coleman here. I think I'm just going to throw it away.
Yeah, I tank on turn, and my thought process was more, this card's not terrific for him, assuming what I was thinking his check raising range was. So if he's check raising me with the backdoor draw, with the backdoor straight draws, with the flush draws, with all of that, then that's not a good card for him. So for me, I think his flush draws, his straight flush draws, would continue with this kind of line after he check raised on flop and putting a lot of pressure on me on the turn. Sure, he could have a set. The sets are not as likely because there are very few combos of sets, right? Especially on a Jack 7 Deuce, where deuces, I think he probably just mucks in mid position.
It feels like it might be an overpair at this point.
Yeah. So it could be something like that. And I think my biggest problem here, Clayton, was after he check raised flop, I didn't think about enough of his value check raises there. I'm always like, oh, what's he doing? He's trying to get tricky here with his flush draws, with his backdoor draws, with his backdoor straight draws, with backdoor straight flush draws, all of that. Not thinking like, what are his good hands here?
Right. And the fact that it's such a brick on the turn and that he bets 2/3 kind of makes me get off of that way of thinking. That's where I decided to change gears and say, well, now I'm actually worried about my 9s. On the flop, I wasn't ready to fold them because it was like, well, he might be doing something cutesy like that ace tray of hearts you mentioned, something like that. Okay, so he's getting cute. I'm not going to be that easy to get rid of when I have value. I have 9s. It's pretty strong. It's a decent hand on Jack 7 Deuce, right? Mm-hmm. But now that a brick hits and he bets pretty big again. It's like, well, the days of like really good players just muscling us and trying to force us out of pots with pure aggression are kind of over. This would be one of the cards that the solver would have taught him. We don't continuation with another barrel once we got called. So that kind of leads me to say, not that he's never bluffing, obviously. He has to have some bluffs. But I feel like this is going to be a pretty value-heavy bet. And I don't like my nines anymore. I'm running for the hills. Yeah. Nice hand, David.
Yeah, I think so, too. I mean, I think if he was sitting across from a guy who he pegged as like just an old super tight amateur, then it's kind of like that old school way of thought where you're like, okay, I check raised on flop, he called. But if I just put some more pressure on him on the turn.
Just keep betting till they go away.
But against what he has to at least assume is an average opponent, then I do think that bet represents strength more often than not. But I told you this was more of a pun.
Oh,
so,
right. I forgot.
So I do continue
around.
to make the call. Right. I was streaming this on Twitch and I kind of explained the thought process that I just talked about, where I'm like, no, this card's not good for his check raising range, and he's just trying to put pressure on me. And trying to get me to fold a hand like nines or eights or something like. I mean, even like Jack 10 at this point is in hell.
Yeah,
on
but
the
it's
Jack
calling.
7 Deuce 4. Right, but it's calling. And so I flick in the call with the 2 nines. The river is the 6 of clubs, so it's Jack of hearts, 7 of diamonds, Deuce of diamonds, 4 clubs, 6 of clubs. So that diamond draw does not get there.
Right.
And he shoves. Pot size shove.
It's so brutal.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he's putting your head in a vice, as they used to say. Yeah, I mean, now you are the one who's agonizing. What do I do? I mean, honestly, I think if you call the turn, you probably have to call the river.
Yeah, now I'm in this sick, disgusting spot where I'm saying, okay, I call turn. I know he set this up for a pot size river shove. That's just the way he's set up with his sizing, that it's going to come on a variety of rivers. Yeah. And I said, these guys will just put max pressure on you, and that's what they will do. So yeah, I kind of like your train of thought where, okay, I'm either folding turn or I might have to go call here.
Yeah.
Which should probably push us more to folding turn.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to get out of there, because I don't want to have to face another bet when I'm already starting to sense strength on 4th Street. But yeah, I think if we choose to call the turn, then we have to call again a lot on the river, especially on a relatively innocuous river card there. It's not like an ace hit on the end or something that might allow me to get away. I think I'm stuck with this pair of nines. I'm just going to call and see the bad news.
That's what I thought. I was just resigned to clicking the call button there and hoping he showed me some crazy bluff, and he did not. He showed me a value hand. Do you have any idea what it was on the Jack 7 Deuce 4-6?
I'm gonna guess. I did start to feel like overpair, so I'm gonna go with like kings.
Yeah, it's a good guess, and it's effectively the same. It was Ace Jack.
Yeah, so
it was the
top
Ace Jack
pair,
of
top
clubs,
kicker.
So
yeah,
I think it was a really cool line by him.
Yeah. I mean, when you bet on that flop, he's hoping you have a jack. And the way that board shook out, whatever jack you have, that ace jack is still good.
Yeah, and I'm probably going call, right?
Yeah, you don't have jack 4 or whatever, so.
And I think that's part of why you see more and more checking out of position on flops like that, on just the Jack 7 Deuce. I
really
think
dry.
Yeah, I think you would have done the same with the overpairs, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
It kind of like opens up the door for this whole array of options where he could also keep the pot small. He could just check call, with a variety of his hands. I was really impressed with the way he played it, and not thrilled with myself. I ran it through a couple of people, and yourself included now, and the consensus does seem, to fold the nines. Now, if this is funny because we just mentioned this. Now, if you were in solver land, I think the solver would say you sometimes probably call with black nines, not having that 9 of diamonds, that you do probably have to call on the turn, at least some. But I think overall, for the tournaments that we're playing, that me and you are playing, I think we can click the fold button a lot more often than not there.
And sometimes you will be folding the best hand, but you're supposed to get bluffed some of the time.
And like you said, the bluffs from Coleman still come. They come at a lower frequency, sure, but I do think they still come on that kind of run out.
Yeah, for sure. He has to have some in his range. The best players are always going to have some number of value hands for their bluffs and some number of bluffs for their value hands. It's just, that's what makes them great, is that you're never actually going to be able to say, well, he's always anything in any spot. You're never going to be able to say always about, Ari or Jason. That we just watched them both win bracelets tonight. Or, somebody that everybody's giving attention, like this David Coleman, who's a name I just heard because I haven't caught up on all my old Poker Go episodes. There is so much content on Poker.
Right, we really do have a lot. Not to show, but we really do have a ton. And if you watch David Coleman play, you might be like, hey, you should just call there and roll your eyes and call, because the man is crazy. And he is pretty absurd. He does take some crazy lines, but that's kind of why he's one of the best with these guys. You know.
Well, dude, I'm so pumped now for the World Series. Like talking to you about poker and just getting my blood flowing, start thinking about hands and strategies and everything. It's just extremely exciting. I know you have to go, but I just want to ask you quickly, what kind of storylines are you following? And now that we are finally back here after, 27 months or something? Yeah,
it's a great question. I think the first one was already answered. The first one was just overall turnout. Right. How would the reunion do with a $500 buy-in, with a $5 million guarantee? Yeah, those questions were answered in the form of 12,975 entry field, in the form of a $5.5 million prize pool. And these other events are coming on strong too. So more than 4,500 entries in that $600 deep stack, which was on a Monday, by the way. Yeah. It was amazing. So the turnout has been tremendous. I was also worried about the logistics of it all. They're short on dealers. They're short on staffers. Exercise some patience when you're here, especially if you're in the payout line. I almost got in a fight with a couple people telling them to cool out a little bit. But most people have been very patient and have been very positive, and that's great. So now I feel like we're allowed to move on to the actual poker storylines. And of course, with us, we can't help it. We always want to see Phil Hellmuth in the mix, right? We always want to see Daniel Negreanu in the mix. Where is Phil Ivey is always a top storyline for us. So 1 week in, for Phil Hellmuth to start this thing off with 2 final tables, one in the 25K horse, one in the 10K Omaha 8 or better. Sure, there's a ton of variance involved in this. We know this. But it could also show that he's pretty sharp, that he's on it, that he's making some runs.
#positivity.
There we go. And there it is. Today now he wasn't around so long because he was super short stack. But today was like a very restrained Phil Hellmuth. Wasn't as emotional, apologized at the beginning of the day, and then promoted his brain fuel drink or whatever the case may be.
He's always got something.
Yeah, right. But then he was eliminated. He said, "Good game, guys." He came over and chatted with me. He's very calm.
Not too bratty?
He wasn't too bratty. He was not the poker brat today. So I'm very curious to follow him, curious to follow Negreanu. And then, it's always like one name just jumps out of nowhere at you. Like it was David Coleman for the high roller scene. Who's it going to be? Somebody could pop up and win 2 bracelets or win a bracelet in the final table another couple events. So
maybe you'll take down your first bracelet.
Maybe you'll take down some tournament.
You and I met in the main event. That's how we first became friends.
The 2015 main. Right. I'll certainly never forget that. So yeah, hopefully we can be part of the top storylines, and that'd be a good sign for us.
That sounds good. Well, Jeff, I really appreciate you taking the time to join us once again on the TPE podcast.
It's been a pleasure, Clayton. Always enjoy chatting with you.
All right. Well, right here, live from Las Vegas and the World Series of Poker here at the Rio All Suites Hotel, Resort, and Casino. Oh, and spa. Don't forget
We're
the
back,
spa.
baby.
We are back for Jeff Platt and for everyone here at Tournament Poker Edge. I'm Clayton Fletcher. Thank you so much for listening.
I wanna hold them like they do in Texas plays. Fold them, let them hit me, raise it, baby, stay with me. Luck and intuition, play the cards with babes to start. And after she's been hooked, I'll play the one that's on her heart.